It is day 100 since the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, and the FBI has found serious revelations.
100 days since Nancy Guthrie vanished, 100 days of searches, of silence, of unanswered questions, and a family that is still waiting for someone to tell them the truth. But on day 100...
100 days. That is how long Nancy Guthrie has been missing. 100 days of unanswered calls, 100 days of searches, 100 days of silence, 100 days of a family waiting for the one answer that matters more than anything else. Where is Nancy? But on day 100, the investigation appeared to reach a different kind of pressure point. Not because law enforcement made a dramatic arrest, not because a public confession was released, not because the FBI stepped in front of cameras and gave the world a clean explanation, but because something reportedly surfaced from the place modern investigations often return to when every visible trail begins to fade. The phone, the digital record, the data people think they can erase. According to the source material, FBI digital forensic investigators had been quietly reviewing devices, metadata, deleted content, timestamps, and communication patterns connected to the Nancy Guthrie investigation. And one area reportedly drew serious attention: deleted messages from Tommaso Chioni's phone during a critical window in the case. Now, this needs to be said clearly from the beginning. Deleted messages do not automatically prove guilt. People delete messages every day. Old conversations, spam, private discussions, group chats, photos, routine phone cleanup. Deletion alone is not a confession. But in a missing person investigation, deletion becomes important when investigators ask three questions. When was it deleted? What was deleted? And why was it deleted during that specific window? That is where the Nancy Guthrie case becomes serious. Because the concern, according to the storyline, was not simply that messages were gone. It was that messages may have been deleted during the very period investigators had already been studying. That changes the meaning. A deleted message from months earlier may mean very little. A deleted message during the hours or days surrounding a disappearance becomes something else. It becomes a gap. And in digital forensics, gaps are not empty. They can become evidence. A phone can tell investigators what happened, but sometimes a phone can also tell investigators what someone tried to hide. That is why day 100 mattered. It suggested the investigation was not cold. It suggested investigators were still working, quietly, carefully, technically, and possibly closing in on parts of the timeline that someone may have believed were gone forever. Most people misunderstand what happens when the FBI examines a phone. They imagine an agent scrolling through text messages, looking at photos, checking recent calls. But federal digital forensics goes much deeper than that. Investigators do not only look at what is visible on the screen. They look beneath it. They pull metadata. They examine app activity. They recover deleted files when possible. They compare timestamps. They examine device connections. They review cloud backups. They check whether messages existed before they were removed. They look at whether a phone went silent. They look at whether communication patterns changed. They look at whether a person's digital behavior suddenly stopped matching their normal routine. A phone is not just a phone in an investigation like this. It is a timeline. Every message has a time. Every call has a duration. Every deletion has a moment. Every app opening can leave a trace. Every location ping can place a person in a wider sequence. And when investigators rebuild that sequence, they are not asking what someone remembers. They are asking what the device recorded. Memory can shift. Statements can change. People can forget. People can lie. But data does not try to sound convincing. It simply exists. And that is what makes deleted messages so dangerous to anyone trying to hide something. Because deletion may remove content from view, but it does not always remove the evidence that the content existed. A phone may still show that a message was sent, that a message was received, that a thread was active, that something was removed, that removal happened at a specific time. And that time can be compared against the rest of the case. That is where investigators begin asking sharper questions. Was the deletion routine? Or was it targeted? Was it part of normal phone behavior? Or did it happen during a window where the person already had something to explain? Did the deleted material involve Nancy? Did it involve money? Did it involve family pressure? Did it involve a conversation that contradicted what someone later told investigators? Did it involve communication with someone else connected to the case? Those questions are not small. They are the kind of questions that can change the entire direction of an investigation. And according to the source material, the FBI's reported focus was not only on the content of the deleted messages, but on the timing, the pattern, and the gap they created in the digital record. Timing, pattern, gap, those three words matter. Timing tells investigators when the deletion happened. Pattern tells them whether the deletion looked normal or unusual. Gap tells them what should have been there but was not. If someone normally keeps months of messages, then suddenly deletes a narrow set of conversations around a critical time, that stands out. If someone normally communicates heavily, then goes quiet during the most important window, that stands out. If someone's phone shows activity before and after a key event, but the exact period investigators care about becomes thin, altered, or missing, that stands out. And once something stands out, investigators begin comparing it to everything else. Statements, alibis, phone pings, financial records, surveillance, witness accounts, other people's devices. That is how a deleted message becomes more than a missing message. It becomes part of a pattern, and the pattern is what investigators follow. In Nancy Guthrie's case, the source material describes Tommaso Chioni as someone who was not a stranger to Nancy. He was reportedly close to her world, connected through family, and someone with access in ways an outsider would not have. Access matters. In disappearance cases, investigators ask who could get close, who knew the victim's routines, who knew the family dynamics, who knew the home, who knew when Nancy might be alone, who could communicate with her without raising immediate alarm, who had reason to ask for help, money, trust, or silence. And when digital evidence begins raising questions around someone with that kind of access, investigators pay attention. The source material also discusses a theory involving possible financial pressure and gambling-related debt. This must be treated carefully. It is a theory, not a court-proven fact. But in the storyline, financial pressure becomes part of the possible motive structure investigators may be examining. Financial pressure can change behavior. Debt can create desperation. Hidden losses can create shame. Shame can create secrecy. Secrecy can create isolation. And isolation can create resentment toward anyone who refuses help, exposes the truth, or becomes an obstacle to escape. That does not mean financial pressure proves a crime. It does not. Many people struggle financially and never harm anyone. But investigators look at pressure because pressure can explain motive. And motive, when combined with access and suspicious behavior, becomes important. If someone was under financial stress, investigators would want to know whether Nancy knew. They would want to know whether she was asked for help. They would want to know whether she said no. They would want to know whether there were messages about money. They would want to know whether any of those messages disappeared. That is where the deleted message issue becomes even more important. Because if the phone once contained conversations about money, pressure, refusal, conflict, or urgency, and those messages were removed during a critical period, investigators would not ignore that. They would ask why. Why remove that conversation? Why remove it then? Why not before? Why not after? Why only certain messages? Why only certain people? Why did the phone record change around the same time the case became urgent? Those are the questions that begin to close space around a timeline. And in a case that has reached 100 days, closing space matters. Because by day 100, the early panic has often changed into something heavier. The first searches have already happened. The initial interviews have already been conducted. The public has already heard the basic facts. But investigators are no longer only chasing immediate leads. They are reconstructing. They are testing. They are comparing. They are looking for contradictions that survive over time. A person can give one story on day 1. But by day 100, that story has been tested against phone records, metadata, surveillance, financial activity, and witness statements. If the story is true, it should become stronger. If the story is incomplete, it begins to crack. That is why digital evidence is so powerful. It does not get tired. It does not forget. It does not protect feelings. It does not change its answer because someone is under pressure. It simply shows what happened on the device. And if the device shows deletion during the window investigators care about most, the device becomes a witness, a silent witness, one that may not say everything but says enough to force new questions. The source material also mentions the role of public reporting and commentary around the case, including journalists such as Brian Enton, who has continued covering developments and keeping attention on the investigation. That matters because public pressure can keep a missing person case from fading. But responsible coverage has to be careful. A journalist can report that investigators are examining deleted messages. A documentary can explain why that matters. But no one should declare guilt without charges, evidence in court, and legal findings. That is the line that must be respected. This story is serious enough without exaggeration. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. The investigation is still active. And every person discussed remains presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. That is why this documentary must focus on evidence, not accusation. The evidence, according to the source material, is not a dramatic confession. It is a digital pattern. messages deleted during a critical window, metadata that may still remain, a timeline that investigators are reportedly rebuilding, possible financial pressure, a relationship close enough to matter, and a question that refuses to go away. What was on the phone that could not stay there? That question is the center of part one. Because when someone deletes messages, the public often focuses on what is gone. Investigators focus on what the deletion reveals. A deletion can reveal fear. It can reveal timing. It can reveal that a conversation existed. It can reveal that someone understood the conversation mattered. It can reveal that the phone record was changed after something happened. It can reveal that the original record did not match the story someone wanted to tell. And in Nancy Guthrie's case, the question is not just whether messages were deleted. The question is whether the deletion fits into a larger pattern around the disappearance. If it does, then the digital evidence may become one of the strongest paths toward the truth. Because even when content is gone, the shape of the communication may remain. A missing conversation still leaves edges. A deleted message still leaves a shadow. A cleaned phone can still show where the dirt used to be. That is why the FBI's reported digital review matters. They are not only searching for words, they are searching for sequence. Who communicated? When they communicated? When the communication stopped? When the deletion happened? Whether the deletion matched the person's normal behavior, whether the deletion matched their statements, whether the deletion aligned with the timeline of Nancy's disappearance. That is how investigators move from suspicion to structure. And structure is what builds cases. At this stage, there may not be one public piece of evidence that explains everything. But investigations do not always move through one piece. They move through accumulation, a phone record, a deleted message, a financial request, a refusal, a gap in the timeline, a changed story, a sudden silence, a missing woman. Each piece may be challenged alone, but together, they can create a pressure that is harder to dismiss. That is why day 100 feels different. Not because the case is solved, but because the digital record may be narrowing, the silence may be breaking, and the messages someone thought were gone may still be speaking through the data they left behind. For Nancy's family, 100 days is too long without answers, too long without certainty, too long without knowing where she is. But if the FBI has recovered even part of the digital trail, then the truth may not be as hidden as someone hoped. It may still be there, in the timestamps, in the metadata, in the gaps, in the deletions, in the difference between what someone said and what their phone recorded. By day 100, the Nancy Guthrie investigation was no longer sitting in the same place it started. The early days were filled with fear, confusion, and urgent questions. Where was Nancy? Who saw her last? Was she taken? Did she leave somehow? Was there a medical emergency? Was there a stranger involved? Was the answer inside the home, outside the home, or somewhere hidden in the people closest to her? But 100 days later, the investigation had moved into a different stage, a slower stage, a colder stage, a more technical stage. The kind of stage where investigators are no longer just searching wide areas and interviewing people for basic information. They are testing statements. They are comparing timelines. They are reviewing digital behavior. They are looking at what was deleted, what survived, and what the phone still remembers, even when the person holding it may have tried to make the record disappear. That is where the reported deleted messages become so important. Because by day 100, investigators were not only asking what happened to Nancy Guthrie, they were asking what someone may have tried to erase after it happened. And that is a very different kind of question. The first question belongs to a missing person investigation. The second question belongs to something deeper, something more deliberate, something that suggests awareness. A person may not know where a missing woman is, but if that same person begins deleting communication during the exact window investigators care about, the question becomes harder to avoid. What did those messages show? What did they say? Who were they sent to? Who sent them back? Were they about Nancy? Were they about money? Were they about family pressure? Were they about a final conversation? Were they about a refusal? Were they about something that would contradict the story being told to investigators? That is why deletion is not treated as an empty space. In a serious investigation, deletion becomes an event, a moment, a choice, a behavior investigators can place on the timeline. And if that deletion happens during a critical period, then the act of deleting can become almost as important as the message itself. Because even if the words are gone, the decision to remove them remains. The source material describes the FBI reportedly focusing on 3 key digital issues: the timing of deletions, the pattern of those deletions, and the gap left behind in the phone record. Those 3 areas reportedly help make the deleted messages a major focus at the 100-day mark. That is the part viewers need to understand. The FBI does not only ask whether a message was deleted, they ask whether the deletion fits the person's normal behavior. If someone deletes messages every day across every conversation, then deletion may not mean much by itself. But if someone normally keeps messages, normally leaves old conversations untouched, normally has a consistent communication pattern, and then suddenly removes specific messages from a critical window, that pattern changes the meaning. That is not ordinary phone cleanup. That becomes targeted removal. And targeted removal raises a more serious question. Why this conversation? Why this date? Why this person? Why this window? Why now? Investigators would compare the deleted activity against months of normal phone behavior. How often did Tommaso delete messages before Nancy disappeared? Did he delete full threads or only certain messages? Did he delete messages with many people or only a small number? Did the deletion happen before investigators spoke to him? After investigators spoke to him? After public attention increased? After Nancy's disappearance became impossible to explain? Those questions matter because the timing of deletion can reveal state of mind. A person who deletes before anything happens may be hiding preparation. A person who deletes right after something happens may be hiding involvement. A person who deletes after law enforcement begins asking questions may be hiding contradiction. Each scenario means something different, and investigators would need to determine which one fits. The content matters, yes, but the timing may matter even more. Because a phone does not only store conversations, it stores reactions. It stores what a person did after the event. And post-event behavior can become powerful evidence. Did the person call for help? Did they search for Nancy? Did they contact family? Did they act worried? Did they cooperate? Did they preserve records? Or did they begin cleaning the phone? That difference can speak loudly. The source material also connects the reported deleted messages to a possible financial pressure theory involving Tommaso Chioni, including alleged gambling-related debt and a possible request for financial help that may have been refused. This remains a theory in the narrative and should not be treated as a proven legal conclusion. But in a documentary breakdown, motive theories matter when they help explain why investigators may be looking at certain evidence. Financial pressure can create desperation. Desperation can create conflict. Conflict can create messages. Messages can create a record. And if that record disappears, investigators will want to know why. Think about how that sequence could look from the FBI's perspective. A person close to Nancy is allegedly under pressure. A request for help may have been made. That request may have been refused. A disappearance follows. Then messages connected to a critical window are deleted. That sequence does not prove guilt, but it creates a chain of questions investigators cannot ignore. Was there a conversation about money? Was there anger? Was there embarrassment? Was there pressure? Did Nancy know something? Was there a confrontation? Did someone send a message that revealed motive? Did someone later realize the phone record exposed too much? And if so, did they try to remove it? That is why digital evidence can become the bridge between motive and timeline. Financial records may show pressure. Phone records may show communication. Deleted messages may show concealment. Metadata may show timing. Together, those pieces can begin to form a picture. Not a complete picture yet. Not a courtroom verdict. But a picture that tells investigators where to look. That is why day 100 feels important. By then, the investigation has had time to move beyond the obvious. In the first days, investigators may not know what matters. They gather everything. They collect statements. They review camera footage. They secure devices. They ask who had access. They ask who was last in contact. They ask who had conflict. They ask who might benefit. But after 100 days, the case becomes more focused. Investigators have had time to compare evidence. They know which statements did not hold. They know which timelines are weak. They know which devices matter. They know which gaps are suspicious. And if deleted messages become a focus at that point, it means they may have survived the first round of explanation. They did not fade away. They became more important. That is not how routine deletion behaves. Routine deletion usually becomes less meaningful after review. Targeted deletion becomes more meaningful when investigators place it beside the rest of the timeline. Because now the deletion is no longer alone. It sits beside the disappearance. It sits beside possible financial pressure. It sits beside access. It sits beside the person's statements. It sits beside whatever other evidence investigators have not made public. And that is where the pressure builds. The public may want one big answer, one message, one confession, one phone call, one piece of evidence that explains everything. But most serious cases do not work like that. They are built through accumulation, a deleted thread, a timestamp, a financial request, a missing woman, a contradiction, a phone going quiet, a pattern of behavior that does not match innocence as cleanly as it should. One piece may be explainable, two may be coincidence, three may still be debated. But when the same direction appears again and again, investigators begin to see structure, and structure is what turns suspicion into a case. That is why the reported FBI digital review matters so much, because it suggests investigators are not just looking for Nancy in physical places. They are looking for her in the record, in the data, in the spaces someone may have tried to empty, in the metadata left behind when the words were removed, in the timestamps that survived, in the pattern of communication before and after the critical window, in the difference between what a person said and what the phone showed. That difference can become devastating. If someone says they were not communicating, but metadata shows they were, that matters. If someone says a conversation was unimportant, but they deleted it during the critical window, that matters. If someone says they were calm, but the phone record shows frantic activity, that matters. If someone says they do not remember, but the phone shows targeted deletion, that matters. If someone says nothing unusual happened, but the digital pattern suddenly changes, that matters. The phone may not tell the whole truth, but it can expose the shape of a lie. That is why investigators study not just content, but behavior. What did the phone do? What did the person do to the phone? What changed after Nancy disappeared? Who contacted whom? Who stopped contacting whom? Who removed messages? Who preserved them? Who acted like nothing was wrong? Who moved differently? Who went quiet? The answers to those questions may not be public yet, but according to the source material, the deleted message issue has become part of the public conversation because the FBI's review reportedly produced findings serious enough to raise new questions at the 100-day mark. That is why people following the case should be careful. This is not the moment to declare that deleted messages prove guilt. They do not. But it is also not the moment to dismiss them as meaningless. They are not meaningless. They are a question mark inside the most important window of the case. And sometimes, in an investigation, the question mark is what leads to the truth. What was removed? Why was it removed? Who was involved in the conversation? What did it reveal? Could it be recovered? Did cloud backups preserve it? Did another device still have it? Did the recipient still have it? Did the metadata show enough even without the words? Those are the questions FBI analysts are trained to answer. And that is why deletion does not guarantee safety for anyone trying to hide evidence. In modern digital forensics, a person can delete a message from their screen and still leave behind the proof that the message existed. They can erase words and leave a timestamp. They can clear a thread and leave a backup. They can remove a conversation and leave metadata. They can think they destroyed the record, only to find that the record survived somewhere else. The truth in digital cases is stubborn. It hides in systems people forget about. Cloud storage, carrier logs, app servers, notification previews, sync devices, receivers' phones, backups created before deletion, data fragments not yet overwritten. A deleted message may not be visible to the user anymore, but that does not mean it has gone to the FBI. And if the deletion happened because someone feared what investigators might find, that fear may become part of the evidence itself. That is the irony of trying to erase digital evidence. The attempt to hide can reveal consciousness. It can reveal awareness. It can reveal that the person understood the content mattered. And if the deletion happens during the same window Nancy disappeared, investigators will not treat that as coincidence without testing it. They will build around it. They will compare it. They will look for the missing piece on another device. They will ask the recipient. They will subpoena records. They will examine backups. They will reconstruct the thread. And if they cannot recover the words, they will still analyze the shape of the communication. Who, when, how often, how long, before or after, deleted or preserved. That shape may be enough to show that the official story does not fit. By the 100-day mark, the emotional meaning of this evidence becomes heavier, because every technical discovery is still attached to a human absence. Nancy Guthrie is not a data point. She is not just a name in a timeline. She is the reason the FBI is looking. She is the person still missing. She is the person whose family has spent 100 days waiting for an answer that has not come. And every deleted message matters because it may bring investigators closer to that answer. If those messages involve Nancy, they may reveal what happened before she vanished. If they involved someone else, they may reveal planning, panic, or coordination. If they involve money, they may reveal pressure. If they involve conflict, they may reveal motive. If they involve nothing, investigators still need to prove that. That is the job, not to assume, to test. And the more the phone record is tested, the less room there is for vague explanations. This case has always been about more than where Nancy went. It has been about who had access, who knew her routine, who had pressure, who had reason to fear exposure, who communicated during the critical window, who went silent, who deleted, who changed their story, who tried to manage what investigators could see. That is why the deleted messages matter, because they are not just missing content, they are behavior. And behavior after a disappearance can be as important as behavior before it. If someone truly has nothing to hide, the phone record should help them. It should confirm their account. It should show normal behavior. It should show concern. It should show cooperation. But if the phone record has missing pieces exactly where investigators need clarity, then the phone becomes less of an alibi and more of a problem. That problem is what appears to be growing around Tommaso's device in the source narrative. Again, no charges have been confirmed in the source material. No court has declared guilt. No official conclusion has been publicly reached. But the questions are sharper now than they were in the beginning. And on day 100, sharp questions matter. They mean the investigation is still alive. They mean law enforcement is still working. They mean silence does not mean nothing is happening. They mean Nancy's story has not been abandoned. They mean someone's attempt to erase part of the record may have failed. And if it failed, then the truth may still be waiting inside the data. The hardest part for Nancy's family is that digital evidence moves slowly. It does not always deliver instant answers. Forensic analysis can take time. Legal review can take time. Subpoenas take time. Device extraction takes time. Cloud recovery takes time. Comparing metadata across multiple devices takes time. But slow does not mean weak. Sometimes the strongest cases are built slowly because every piece has to survive challenge. Every timestamp has to be verified. Every recovered file has to be authenticated. Every deletion has to be placed correctly. Every claim has to be supported. Every gap has to be explained. That is how evidence becomes courtroom ready. Not through speed, through precision. And if the FBI is focusing on deleted messages during a critical window, precision is exactly what they need. Because the defense will challenge everything. They may say the deletion was routine. They may say the messages were irrelevant. They may say the timing was coincidence. They may say the phone was misinterpreted. They may say the metadata does not prove intent. They may say there is no direct link to Nancy. That is why investigators must build the context. Normal phone habits, critical window activity, communication partners, financial pressure, statements, movement data, other devices, the broader timeline. A single deleted message may be argued away. A deletion pattern connected to a larger timeline is harder to dismiss. That is why investigators do not look for isolated facts. They look for convergence, different evidence pointing toward the same question. And here, the question remains chillingly simple. What was on Tommaso Chioni's phone that investigators believe may have mattered enough to delete? The answer may not yet be public, but the existence of the question changes the case. Because if the deleted messages were irrelevant, investigators may be able to close that thread. But if they were relevant, if they reveal pressure, conflict, knowledge, planning, or panic, then they could become one of the most important digital clues in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. That is why people must continue paying attention. Not to rumors, not to reckless accusations, not to online theories presented as fact, but to evidence, to confirmed developments, to the timeline, to the digital trail, to the ways law enforcement moves when a case is not cold but carefully tightening, and most of all to Nancy, because behind every forensic discussion is the same unresolved truth. Nancy Guthrie has not been brought home. Her fans still needs answers. Her community still needs clarity. And if someone knows what happened, 100 days is already too long to stay silent. If you have credible information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, do not post it in comments. Do not send it to gossip pages. Do not spread rumors online. Contact law enforcement directly. You can contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. That is 1-800-225-5324, or submit a tip online at tips.fbi.gov. If a reward is being offered in connection with Nancy Guthrie's case, credible tips that help investigators may be eligible under the terms set by law enforcement or the family. Always confirm reward details through official sources before sharing or acting on them.